We had the election of the Thatcher government in 1979. She began a series of campaigns, the Family Values Campaign, the Victorian Values Campaign, both of which emphasised a very traditional morality and were very down on the LGBT community, culminating, of course, in the enactment of Section 28 in 1988. That was the first new anti-gay law in Britain for a century, and it basically prevented local authorities, including education authorities and schools, health authorities and local councils, from doing anything that could be construed as promoting or endorsing same-sex relationships.
We were characterised at the time by one of the more sympathetic Conservative politicians as Section 28. Margaret Thatcher agreed to it because it was red meat for her right wing. She didn't actually care. She wasn't particularly homophobic. She had gay male friends. She just thought we should be terribly discreet, and there was a widespread view that we were somehow corrupting children, just as now there is a widespread view that trans people are corrupting children, and it's the same nonsense rhetoric, it really is. Because just as trans kids now know if they're trans, we knew we were lesbian or gay long before anyone allowed us to be, and this was in an era when there was absolute silence about it, but suddenly there had to be a new law against us and a new law suppressing us, and that was Section 28.
Prior to that, the year before, at the 1987 Conservative Party conference, Margaret Thatcher had given the green light to this legislative attack by declaring that basically there was no right to be gay. She attacked the principle, the right to be gay. That's extraordinary from a Prime Minister to do that, and Section 28 was the ugly child of that tirade.
And the trouble was with Section 28 that we thought from our lovely little bubble that if we protested enough and demonstrated enough and marched in the streets and shouted, that we would persuade everyone to not do this. And life's not like that, because we wouldn't talk to the Tories, most of us. We wouldn't talk to the people who had the absolute power to do this. And so unsurprisingly, we lost hands down in a legal and legislative sense, but we gained a lot of public sympathy. And that's why after Section 28, which was the first piece of anti-gay or anti-lesbian and gay legislation since the Victorian era, after that people really stopped, and some of us had a good hard think about our tactics and the fact that we weren't going to win just by allying with other leftist or human rights movements, that we had to spread out more widely, that we had to be even more visible than we had been, but we had to get people on our side. And that's how Stonewall was born. In 1988, Section 28, which forbade the, I can't remember the exact wording, but basically it said that homosexuality should not be portrayed as a pretend family relationship, which was incredibly insulting, and it frightened local authorities out of supporting us, or most local authorities out of supporting us in any way. That came through, and it was never used against anyone, but the threat of it made local authorities and schools self-censor themselves for many years to come after it. Indeed, after it was repealed, you would still find schools and local authorities self-censoring themselves because it had scared them.